Hi everyone, welcome to the Glow podcast. I'm here with a very exciting guest today. I have Amir here with me and we are going to talk all things internal wellness and anti-aging, quote unquote. But if you are new here, we are Tailored Marketing and we help aesthetic and wellness clinics grow their practices. So if you're interested, drop a comment below. Amir, I'm super excited to have you here today. Thank you for coming on. I would love for you to just kind of go ahead and introduce yourself so the audience knows who you are.
And thank you so much for having me. It's a great
Of
pleasure.
course.
And so we work with some of the top functional and anti-aging medicine doctors, and we learn about their research, their approach, and we help them create content. It's content that one way in one hand is accurate. At the same time, it's easy to understand and very practical, so people can take better care to their health and, if possible, connect with their doctors if it's relevant, if the doctors we work with. And what we hear every day is mind-blowing. This is not conventional medicine. This is functional anti-aging. This information saves and changes lives every day. And maybe for those of your listeners who may not be familiar with functional medicine, functional doctors are specialized in finding the root cause of disease. So, for example, you may have hypertension, a bit of blood sugar issues, some chronic joint pain, early signs of aging. And instead of getting 3 drugs for each of these issues or even a surgery, right? This is what the conventional medicine system may recommend. A functional medicine doctor may find that some of the food you eat causes inflammation in your body. So you modify your nutrition, maybe you tailor your movement and exercise to address some imbalances in your body, and maybe that's all your body needs to heal. And so I know if it may sound out there, but I'm here to say that is my personal experience. So
Yeah.
and the thing is, for me, it took me decades to figure it out on my own before I knew that what functional medicine was. So fortunately today, people don't have to go and figure this out on their own. So our mission is to work with these amazing doctors and just share their discoveries with people. So it's going to be more readily available.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And I feel like we live in an age too where it is a lot easier to have access to this information, which is awesome because, like even 15 years ago, it was harder to find out about these things. And now it's, if you hear a new term like functional medicine, functional health, those types of things, you can go to the internet and kind of look it up and figure it out pretty quickly. You might not get as in-depth of a response as actually talking to somebody about it, but at least you are kind of able to figure it out. And so kind of going back to one of the points that you brought up, anti-aging, and this term is kind of becoming ever more popular with people using it. So is aging something you think we can truly influence or even reverse with kind of different lifestyle choices?
Based on what we know, yes. I mean, lifestyle is one of the most powerful, I would say, universal ways to influence aging. And I think one reason lifestyle is so powerful is because our modern lifestyle is very different from the natural ways we humans have lived for a very long time.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about the foods that we eat, movement or lack of movement, connection to nature, that modern stressful lifestyle that we have, the toxins, chemicals all around us, and so many factors, all very different than the way we actually humans have evolved and lived for many, many centuries. So a lot of studies actually looked into populations. This is one example known to live longer and healthy lives, like the blue zones. And we see a lot of these healthy lifestyle behavior that these populations have. But now we have the science to understand why it works, why this helps with healthy aging. And so we have a lot of things we can do today, and we have the science to understand why we want to do this. And on that note, we can probably touch a little bit about how can we measure aging, because with longevity and healthy aging, it takes really a lot of years to truly learn and study humans. We live many years. There is so much diversity, but there are a few tests that we can do that really helps us to see how the lifestyle changes that we make work. So if we can just touch on that, there is chronological age. This simply tells us when you were born and the years you have lived in this life. Then there is biological age, and this measures how your body ages at a cellular level. And your biological age can be younger, the same, or older than your chronological age. And you can also look into the age of individual organs and systems in your body. This test can be very practical. There's also various tests, biomarkers that are associated with healthy aging and risk factors like A1C for metabolic health or CRP for the level of inflammation in your body. And so this can be very, very practical. You can do the test, you can have some sort of a baseline before you make these changes, and then do the test again. And you can see how well your lifestyle is working for you. And I know this is very popular in the longevity space, but I think key message for people is that this can actually be available to anyone, because it's not just, it's a very easy and practical way just to see if your lifestyle choices work.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And who would you go to say get like a biological test?
People can do them on their own.
Okay.
One test that a lot of our doctors work with, it's called TrueAge, but I think the company name is True Diagnostics, but there are so many. And if you can afford it and you're open to it, you're probably going to get better results working with a functional anti-aging medicine doctor, because they have access to other tools and other tests that may not be available. And also they can read the tests much more than us. Some of these tests are complicated. So if you're open to that and you're really into the optimization and maximizing it, that's probably going to be very beneficial. But a good place to start for many people who are curious, just get the blood work and maybe one of these biological tests and redo it after you do the lifestyle.
Yeah, no, that's such a good idea too, to like do it kind of at the beginning to have a baseline and then make some of those lifestyle changes that you spoke to. And then you can kind of redo the test and see for yourself how it's helped you. And so let's talk a little bit too about interventions that people can take in their lifestyle. So how do interventions like fasting or movement impact cellular health and the aging process?
Yeah, these are huge in the longevity space. So fasting, by the way, used to be a natural way of life. If you think about our great ancestors, food wasn't always available. And when they actually finally, they ate whole food, whole natural food and whatever was available. And we're going to do this comparisons a lot today. Fast forward to today, I think this is the first time in what we call our human history where we have access to food all day long. And this includes a lot of unnatural food, processed foods, tons of carbs, fats, proteins, a lot of different potential excess calories all day, 5 days a year. So we have a lot of data suggesting that this type of eating is very harmful to our health. So with fasting today, I think for many people, this can be a way to give our body a break from the habit of constantly eating. And there's a lot of data on fasting for the benefit for aging. And we can say that with longer fasting, it's shown to activate autophagy. This is the self-eating. It's a survival mechanism of the body that recycles damaged tissue for energy. And it's shown to promote so many youthful cellular behavior, mitochondrial function, stem cells, a lot more. Even with shorter fasting, a lot of those intermittent fasting you hear about, there's a lot of improvements in metabolic health, inflammatory markers, and they're all related to cellular aging and health. So maybe we can share some of the insights we hear from our doctors that sometimes people are not aware. There's so many protocols today, like 16-8, where you limit your eating window to 8 hours, one meal a day, OMAD. There's also prolonged fasting of a few days, like I mentioned, and so many others. What we hear from our doctors all across the board is that one size doesn't fit all here. So you have to match it to your needs. And this may be very, very different from one person to another. So for example, people that have frailty issues, or they struggle with gaining weight, or they have metabolic health, or some diabetes, or they take insulin. On the other hand, some people are super active. They need a lot of calories. Some people under a lot of stress in their life. So many of the doctors we work with, they tailor the approach to each patient.
Yeah.
And in some cases, they would just recommend not to fast, even if the person is into longevity, just because they're not at that time of their life, their body is not going to be benefit from that. Also, intermittent fasting is popular, and we want to consider the eating phase too. There's a lot of studies with intermittent fasting that they showed mixed results. And when they dive deeper, why didn't it work? It turned out that people actually, when they ate, they totally pig out. And so what you eat in the feeding window matters. I know it's exciting to eat when you fasted the whole day, but in these studies, it completely did not work.
Yeah.
I like to look at it in a simple way that during fasting, the body optimizes many functions, and this can optimize the nutrients uptake when we eat, but we still want to eat healthy to get the most out of this.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
No, and I've
yeah.
even heard of too, just kind of going off of what you were saying with like some cancer patients, and not all cancer patients, but some that they recommend fasting because when you fast, it stops feeding your cellular growth as well. So I've heard that even with cancer patients, the benefits of fasting in some instances as well.
Yeah, and I read that there's a lot of different medical facilities around the world that's actually a treatment for cancer. I don't know. I know in the US we're not supposed to say it, but I'm just going to say this is what's out there. So there, I saw a few documentaries, read a few studies on that. They're actually going to a facility. This is a medically supervised fasting. There's a few places like this also in the US. And because fasting, prolonged fasting comes with risks. There's
Yeah.
electrolyte imbalances and all those kind of things. And like we said, fasting is not for everyone, but a lot of these cases, people are able to get healed from those type of things like cancer and other really serious disease. And that is contributing to that autophagy we spoke about.
Yeah.
So we're not making claims here. I'm just sharing some of the research we read. So
Yeah.
this is not a recommendation, but I would feel that I don't express my integrity if I don't share that. So people should know.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. Yeah, and like I said, I've heard of that. I'm not, like I said, not making any claims, but I've heard that that has been a form that even doctors, like in the US, but also outside of the US, are telling patients as well to help with the stop of cancer spreading, basically. And so what about any interventions with movement? We talked about fasting, but movement as well I know is huge with lifestyle and anti-aging as well. So can you speak to any of that?
Absolutely, yeah. So we have tons of data suggesting movement is tightly related to healthy aging. And if I have to sum it up in one sentence, I would say that this human body is designed to move. Our great ancestors move all day long, and I think all of us, as we age especially, we feel the difference when we don't move for a few days, start to feel the stiffness, emotional health may be impacted, and so on. And so just like we talked in the food situation, we live in times where our lifestyle is very sedentary in many cases. And we have tons of studies that shows it's related to many age-related diseases. So we really want to keep moving. The question that often rises, what the best type of exercise and movement for healthy aging?
Yeah.
Many of the doctors we work with, and we ask this very question, they start by saying, at the end of the day, do the type of exercise or movement you love the most, so you keep doing it. There are just so many different benefits there. With that said, there are some studies on specific exercises. I'm going to mention them. We don't have to do everything, of course, but people are familiar with most of them.
Yeah.
The first is aerobic exercise. We're talking about zone 2, 60 to 70% of your max heart rate, fast-paced walk. And this targets cardiovascular, mitochondrial, and metabolic function. A lot of people like to do it while they're fasting. It's a good combination. And this one is a general recommendation also for, not with fasting, but this aerobic exercise, also the conventional medicine likes to recommend. Second one also regarding to aging is resistance training. We're targeting muscle mass, bone density. These get lower when we age. So it's kind of like a use it or lose it kind of thing. And for those with joint issues, there is a growing trend in longevity where combining those resistant training with resistant bands, which is much more joint friendly. I personally use them. Really, really great. You can get the full range of motion and it's safe for the joints.
Yeah.
Another one, which is a huge trend in longevity, growing trend, is HIIT, high intensity interval training. And for those of you who may not be familiar with HIIT, this is you're basically talking about a short burst of high-intensity exercises. Think about sprinting or cycling, burpees, jumping, squat jumps. That's followed by a short rest, and then you repeat again and again for a few times. And the studies shown this creates a bit of a stress to the body, a bit of a shock. And that shock benefits the cardiovascular, mitochondrial, metabolic function. And in some studies, they even talked about hormonal output. It's favored that as well. And it's also very short. Like a typical session is 15, 30 minutes total with the stretches and warm-up. So I think that might be a good fit for some people. You could also combine it with resistance training, so you get also the muscle and bone density benefits. With that said, let's just say that HIIT is not for everyone. If you have people with injuries, health issues, or that may fit their fitness level may not be, they're just starting, may not be the best fit for everyone. But that's a super popular trend and hit. And I would
Yeah.
say the last thing in longevity, somewhat overlooked, is all about stretches, flexibility, mobility, balance, coordination. And I'm saying these things because balance issues and falls with aging, they're common. And a lot of this is because we lose the ability to coordinate ourselves and to balance ourselves because we don't do that. And
Yeah.
so common examples, there's so many, but Tai Chi, I think, helps with that. Yin type of yoga is when you hold the pose in a slower manner for a while. And these type of things complement everything else we spoke about with movement. And so I think that's really a big one that people may not always do, but stretching is something you can do at your home. You don't have to go outside.
Yeah, no. And I think it's so important too what you said about finding what you like doing, because if you don't like doing something, you're not going to do it most likely. So it's almost like try these different things. Like if you're not exercising, see which one you like the most, and then try to stick with at least one of them and maybe mix in some of the others that are less desirable.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you're looking forward to something, there's also, I think, emotional benefit to it as well. It's like, it's not a chore. It's like fun and you're looking forward to it rather than, oh no, I have to go again and do that.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it creates more stress than you had before, just to go and do something you don't like.
Yeah, I know. I've heard it compared one time before. I used to live in Atlanta, which the traffic in Atlanta is outrageous. And like, I would be going to yoga to like enjoy myself. And I'm sitting in traffic on the way there and getting stressed out like by sitting in traffic. And it's almost like you have to kind of weigh the options. It's like, okay, maybe I should just start doing this at home or somewhere closer.
And that's a great point, actually, because sometimes the event itself we go to is great, but to get there is taking the fun and the benefit of the entire event. So I know exactly what you mean. Sometimes with traffic in other situation and you stress your whole day just to get there, it's also something to consider.
Yeah, no, definitely. And so let's talk a little bit more about Reiki, yoga, and meditation and kind of how these ancient practices really align well with modern longevity science as well.
Yeah, so as far as the science, I think the key benefits that really truly stands out with meditation, Reiki, breath work, some types of yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong, many others, they have the ability to calm the body and modulate the nervous system. And we're talking about activating the parasympathetic response, that rest of digest, that relaxes the body, it lowers heart rate, blood pressure, and other biomarkers. And let's talk again about modern life. We have chronic stress, that fight or flight, leading to high cortisol and inflammation, and that known to accelerate aging and really create poor health outcomes. So having these practices as a part of our life can play a huge role in healthy aging. And it's in a way to balance that modern life stress. It's very important. I think there's another aspect to these practices, and that is emotional health. And emotional health is not separated from our physical health. And the research knows it. So the research shows that emotional stress is tied to inflammation, immune function problems, hormones issues. And, not to mention the type of life we have. Are we happy or are we constantly worried, angry, stressed out? With practices like Reiki and meditations, and some people classify it under energy work, this can help with our emotional health. I would like to see a lot more science on that, but we can say that we know in our society today, we don't always pay attention to our emotions. We don't always know how to properly cope or process emotions. And we can talk about emotions like fear, anger, grief, shame, guilt, sadness. Notice I don't call them negative emotions. They're a part of being human. So we used to hear things like, be strong, what doesn't kill you, make you stronger, suck it up, move on, big boys
Yeah.
don't cry. There's so many. Just forget these emotions, but we have enough science to know that when we don't process these emotions, they don't go anywhere. They stay in the system. They start to affect our current thoughts and emotions. And over time, it affects our physiology. And so these practices can help release some of these emotions, especially if a person understands what we're saying and they're open to go that path. They're not scared of those emotions. They say, okay, we understand it. Let's see what's up there. Let's see what's is covered deep inside. I'm ready. And I would say also from a personal experience, this opens the door to many people, including yours truly, to the spiritual aspect in us.
Yeah.
I mean, we're more than just our human body, right? So I think we'll see much more studies on that years to come. And I would say just on one sentence here, in my opinion, this is far more powerful than anything else we've spoken today.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, and it just shows too with forms of physical exercise like yoga, for example, where we are very connected with our bodies, but it also connects us so much emotionally and spiritually, like you said. It just really shows like that true connection there, that like our physical is so connected to our emotional. Like if our physical bodies are able to relax and, go with the breath work, then our emotional will also be able to relax as well.
I mean, I would say on that note, when you really think about it and you see the history of humanity and how people, our emotional strength is far more strong than the physical body. You would see people that achieved the like amazing things, and you look at their physical bodies and they may not be strong physically, or they may have health issues or all those things, but their emotional strength and their spirit was such that they demonstrated and did the impossible, right? So it shows something.
Yeah. No, definitely. I completely agree. And how do you think with emotional and I guess even physical health too, how do you think community and really connection to other people influence our health span?
Yeah, so we have decades of research, and they suggest that positive relationship is actually a strong predictor of long-term health. That was a study based on many years. And we can look, and we spoke about the blue zone, we can look at them as an example. So for those people who may not hear about the blue zone, these are 7 areas in the world that people who live there have the longest lifespan. For example, Sardinia in Italy, Okinawa in Japan, Loma Linda in California. So, and what's interesting is that these, despite being in different areas, the researchers found commonalities that we believe play a role in their long life. And guess what? Social connection was one of them. And there is a strong sense of purpose in these areas, a strong sense of belonging to a community, around themselves with supportive people. And that's one side of that connection. We know that we have a lot of evidence. And on the other hand, we spoke about modern life. We have research now that suggests loneliness as the new cardiovascular risk factor of chronic disease. It's that strong. And so we are a social species. So social connections are a key part of life. I think relationships are probably one of the most important aspects of our life, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
I think, yeah, having a community is so important, and especially having a positive community too. If you're around negative people and negative energy, that's kind of going to affect you as well, because we all kind of feed off of each other. But being with positive people that have a really good outlook on life and, are just very motivating as well, I feel like that can make such a difference, a positive influence in your life.
Absolutely.
And if someone's just starting their wellness journey, what are the first 3 simple things they can kind of do today to support their longevity, going off of the things that we've talked about today?
I would start with sleep. That's number 1. And this is a time where the majority of the cellular repair, regeneration occurs, including hormones regulations, brain detox, emotion regulations, memory processing. I mean, we can go all day long with these benefits, and the science is very clear on that. And on the other hand, we have studies where poor sleep was associated with increased inflammation, disrupt hormones, poor brain function, accelerated aging. And so sleep is really important. I think, well, everyone is different. 7 to 8 hours of sleep work for most people. So I think sleep is definitely number 1. The second one is nutrition. And I know we said simple things to do, and nutrition is not easy. It's complicated. It can be a big rabbit hole for a lot of people. One size doesn't fit all. And it usually takes time for a person to tailor the foods they eat, including taking the right supplements to avoid nutritional deficiencies. And, the doctors we work with, that's what they do. That's a part of what they do. But with that said, some simple things and a place to start for most people. The first thing is to avoid processed foods, all pre-made meals with, ingredients you can't even pronounce.
Yeah.
Oils from seeds, fried foods, sodas. minimizing sugars, minimizing all these excess calories that we don't need that destroy our health. At the same time, focus on whole foods. So colorful vegetables, a rainbow, healthy fats like olive oil, avocados, clean, high quality proteins. And it's important to say also, this is going to be a process and learning curve, but start to learn and question the source of foods you eat. Be like a food detective. The water you drink, read labels. For example, if you choose to eat animals, ask, what was the diet they ate? Were they given hormones and antibiotics? Because if you eat that animal, you're introducing those to your body too. With plants, were they genetically modified? If this you don't know, you just look for certified organic or non-GMO project verified, because by law, this cannot be GMO. So things like that, just to get started and be curious, learn more. Nutrition is very powerful when it comes to health and longevity, especially because the options we have in our societies today in the Western world, not very good. It takes time. It takes a lot of effort, I would say, for the most part, to get there, to find healthy foods. But it's possible, and people do it. You just question it, become curious, and don't. If they don't know, if you don't get good answers, don't eat that food. It's that simple. And I was in restaurants, and I asked questions like, "Is this fish wild or farm raised?" Because farm-raised fish sometimes are giving soy and grains and things that they're not supposed to eat, and they're toxic, they're not healthy. And I kid you not, everybody on the table looked at me like I was some sort of a alien, and even the chef didn't know. So it's, expect to get into some comical situations, but we're getting there. There's a lot more awareness in that.
Yeah, for sure.
Movement and exercise is number 3, for sure. We spoke about this. And like we said, a great place to start. Find an activity you love that agrees with your body and do it. And with that said, you mentioned it too. Spice things up a little bit. Change things around. Keep your body guessing. A lot of the doctors kind of saying, make it a bit of a challenge, but not too much that you're tired and drained. So your bodies keep kind of adapting and guessing. And that's really beneficial. But just watch so you're not overdoing it. And I would say also adding some stretches as a part of your activity. I know we said 3 things. I would like to say one more, and that's like a big one, but I think spiritual connection is my number 4. There's many ways to talk about that, but I think we can't really talk about longevity or human life without talking about the spiritual aspect in us. And we know humans thrive when we feel that we're connected to something greater than ourselves. We have a purpose when we're giving, expressing love, kindness. It just feels good to us. It fills our hearts with joy and love. And we have tons of research that shows that this kind of thing completely changed our biology in such a favorable way. So finding that connection, living that connection can be a very powerful way to a long, healthy life. And I know it's a big challenge for a lot of us today. A good place to start, I do it too, it helped me a lot, is to just leave enough time in your day to disconnect from this modern world. Just pause, reflect inward, start to ask yourself, how is my day? How do I feel? What's in this life I really want to experience? And be open to listen to what may come. So I think these are my top things to get started with.
Yeah, no, I think that that's great. And going back a little bit to what you said about the nutrition, and then I want to touch a little bit on the spiritual aspect too. I heard this from somebody recently who was kind of talking about the beginning stages of making those changes in your diet from really not eating processed to whole foods, because that's the biggest thing for people a lot of the time. And they said to just stay on the outside of the grocery store, basically, because everything in the aisles is going to be processed, and you have your fruits and veggies, your meats, and like your dairy, the things that are whole foods on kind of the outside of the grocery store. And then you might have to go in the aisle to get like 1 or 2 things, if you're getting like olive oil or avocado oil or whatever. I thought that was good advice for someone kind of just starting out. And then another thing too is going to like your local farmers markets, because then you know exactly where those sources are coming from, where your fruits and veggies are coming from. And it's also fun to see like what's local to your area and what they're actually growing. And it's also a lot more sustainable too, because you're not supporting, mass transportation of these different fruits and veggies and things like that. So I think that, I love that. And then also for the spiritual aspect as well, I love what you said too about, if you're just starting out kind of on your spiritual journey, it's like, it's just finding like a moment of quietness, kind of, or a moment of reflection, maybe where you like write in a journal about your day or whatever. It doesn't have to be like this big thing, because I think sometimes people get intimidated by the word spiritual if they don't have that sort of relationship yet, but it's really just disconnecting.
Absolutely. And just sit, if you have the time, just go outside in nature, take off your shoes, just ground yourself on the ground, close your eyes, sit a little bit in the sun. Basic things like that, that if you think about it, our great ancestors, for them, it was just obviously all day long. And for us, sometimes we spend days or weeks without even touching the ground. So things like that, it doesn't have to be complicated.
Yeah, no, definitely. And so, my last question is, what's one piece of wisdom from your personal wellness journey that's kind of changed your life and could maybe help somebody out there as well too?
I can share a short practice. And
Yeah.
so you can imagine your last day on earth. You do a little, you can call it a life review. You look at your life and what do you see? How do you feel? Are you grateful for the life you've had? Or do you feel sadness or regret for not doing something? Are there any lesson learned you can share with your present self now? Maybe you feel regret for not forgiving someone or forgiving yourself, or maybe for not addressing some conflicts or relationship issues you had. Maybe you feel regret for not experiencing things or chasing the things you're passionate about. Maybe for not being loving enough or kind to yourself or to others. And so on. So just let yourself be there and see what comes up, accept all these emotions. And the reason I think this is really powerful is I think at the end of the day, these things is what matters. And regardless where you're at life today, right now, you can get back to that present moment from this future sort of self kind of imagination with these insights, reflect in your life and see what you can do now. So, and for me, I would say this is a great way to get perspectives on things and what matters. Very often than not, we get caught into the flow of things and, oh, this is so important right now. And then when you reflect and you go back to what we call conflicts or challenges of our day, they seem so small right now and insignificant. And I just have a good laugh and saying, okay. So, and that also can open a door, of course, to the spiritual aspect in us. But I think that's a really nice way to get a different perspective.
Yeah, no, I think that that's great. Really reflecting on what matters and if you are happy kind of with what you're doing. Because that's the most important thing, too, is like I feel like purpose is so big in people's lives. If you don't have purpose, like what are we doing here? And that gets into the spiritual part of it, obviously, too, a lot of what are we here for?
And I tell you, every interview or every doctor we spoke with regarding longevity, they always say the purpose. We humans need to feel that we have a purpose. Otherwise, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's awesome. That's good advice. We all got to find our purpose and what we're doing here for sure. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I would love for you to tell my audience where would be the best place to connect with you, find you, and then I'll also put it in the show notes as well so that they have access to it there.
Yeah, that would be great. And it was such a pleasure speaking with you. The best way to contact me or ourselves, we have two websites. And if you can put there, it's longeviq.com and WebFMD. One of them is the first one is the anti-aging piece. The other one is functional medicine. And any questions, we would love to hear from you. So you can put those website links. That would be great. And we'll be love to hearing from you.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you so much for coming on. And I really, really appreciate it.
Likewise, my pleasure.